Hi, I'm Casey Green with the Campus Computing Project. We're here in Las Vegas at TransformingEDU 2014, scheduled in conjunction with the annual Consumer Electronics Show. I'm talking with Brian Kibby. Brian is the president of McGraw-Hill Higher Education. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, great. Well, we'll see how you feel about that after the interview.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll feel fine.
So, Brian, as some of our audience knows, or some may not, in August 2013, last year, 12 rather, I'm sorry, you wrote a piece for Inside Higher Ed. You talked about we got to go all digital for all curriculum in higher education in 3 years, by August 15. I am now referring to that as the Kibby Challenge. I see that metaphorically as kind of like Kennedy in 1961 saying we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. I think you've taken on the bigger challenge. I've said that publicly in a couple of forums. All Kennedy had to worry about was money and technology. You've got to deal with culture. You know, both your own in terms of McGraw-Hill and the publishing industry, that of your education campus clients. Culture to me seems to be a lot more challenging than technology. Technology is easy. Virtual clocks ticking down. Where are we on the Kibby Challenge?
Sure. I mean, I think that certainly President Kennedy it was a bigger challenge than what we're talking about, because I really believe that in this issue it's a foregone conclusion. Culture is a big part of it. Let's take the tenure system. I'm a big fan of the tenure system. So I think that one of the opportunities that senior leaders at college universities and other places have working with tenured faculty is to go back to them and say, listen, tenure was built to protect you, was to protect your individual thought, your research. So why don't we use that platform now? You have a platform as a tenured faculty body to disrupt and really use that voice in a different way. So culture, it's more of a sales job to all of us, but sales in a very good way. Internally, certainly I have the same challenges that any leader has. People don't do what you want them to do because you tell them to do it. Nobody does. You have to constantly help people understand where we're going, the vision. But when it comes to an all-digital thing, it's not really that hard because it's going to happen. Print is not a great education experience. It's just not. More and better content is not going to change the world. It hasn't yet. At least in the last 125 years. So what changed the world now are investments in technologies, educational technologies that will help improve student outcomes and results. Often people say to me when I talk about these different kinds of things, I always tell them that I'm not in a textbook business. I'm in a learning outcomes business. I'm in a helping improve student performance business, and then ultimately we change the world that way. So I don't really think that the whole idea of going to all digital in 36 months, it really wasn't that much of a stretch.
I'll agree with you. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. 36
Right.
months is very ambitious. But it seems to me you're talking about risk at one level of this. I mean, technology is a metaphor for change, no question. And by extension, particularly if you look at the literature, the academic literature about innovation, technology is a metaphor for risk. I have to do something different. And we all, particularly faculty members, you know, lots of reasons to be risk averse. I've got a nice little thing going here. I trust the materials I'm using. If I go all digital, I have to spend more. I have a capital investment in terms of changing some of the stuff I use for my courses. There's other aspects of an environment. There may not be a supporting infrastructure either for me or for my students. This is not a system thing. This is very much a highly individual thing in terms of these choices.
I think you're right. I think you're right on the issue of risk. There's far greater risk in them not doing it, and they'll see that. I'll give you an example. I spent a lot of money recently to take an executive education course from a major branded elite institution.
I won't ask you for the name. Is that particular colors or geography?
A major one.
Okay.
And there were about 60 executives all paying a lot to take this 2-week-long course. Very serious course. So we all had our iPads, the woman from Chick-fil-A, the senior vice president from Coke, and we're ready to go. The professor walks in, and there's print binders, print everywhere. Very talented, very competent faculty member. Before the faculty member started, the woman from Chick-fil-A said, "Hey, you, McGraw-Hill guy," because it said President McGraw-Hill, textbook guy, "what's this mess?" And I said, "Professor knows better." Here's my point. What's going to happen at any level now, if you do not show the student body, they're making consumer-based decisions on where they're going to school or executive education programs they're going to take. If you look that tired and you're not preparing your student body for the digital world, you're going to go out of business.
But let's go back to that very example.
Right.
You know, her question shouldn't so much have been addressed to you. or it could have been, hey, you McGraw-Hill guy, what can you do for this person in this executive education program? What was the reaction of the person leading the program with all the binders?
I'm sure he was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because it's embarrassing. So let's take it at a different level. Most schools in the world are not elite institutions. 99.9% are schools where I went to, Western Illinois University. They all have ratemyprofessor.com, etc. So if you are leading a class, you're going to end up having students, because there are other professors who teach that class on campus. You're going to be embarrassed because they're all going to go to the instructor that's helping prepare students for the digital world. So my point is, there's far more risk in not doing this. And the biggest risk of all is the lives of the student. They're paying a lot of money to go to school, and it's all about, ultimately about, did they do well enough? Did they learn enough to go out and achieve their dreams in the world? So there's not much risk at all.
Let's talk about the student side.
In the ground.
You know, good, bad, or otherwise, I think that part of what's often forgotten in the conversation about students being digital is that whether they're 18 or they're 58, they all came of age with print in education. Now, there's some shifting of that as we see some of the one-to-one initiatives in K-12. So they have systems, personal systems, about how they annotate, how they mark up, how they do other kinds of stuff. And in some ways, these kind of first generation or generation 1.5 digital products really look like DOS 1.0.
That's right.
User-friendly DOS, offered with a lot of promise and a lot of potential, but also a lot of problems for this first generations of users. There's some evidence about students being resistant to it for all kinds of reasons. And I think it's fair to say that good, bad, or otherwise, you're sort of stuck on the receiving end of a lot of expectation that not only should there be a lot of added value, because you represent the publishing industry, but digital should cost less. And we know that that hasn't necessarily happened. How do you deal with these expectations of both added value as well as cost?
I think there's a couple things there you said. The first is, you're right, the experience and the uptake from students hasn't been that great because the experience has sucked. It's been until recently, until with McGraw-Hill with SmartBook that I'll pitch briefly, but it was just PDF. Now SmartBook comes out. It's this living learning experience. It has your adaptive in there. It has video connectivity. It knows you ultimately as well as you know yourself. So that's changing all that. So once the experience changes and the offer in the marketplace changes, which we've done, something called SmartBook, you're going to have more people interested in it. But in terms of cost, the cost issue has been an important issue in the content game, but also in the cows game for a while. In many ways, the cost issue has been solved. You can today, if what you want is just the fax ma'am digital textbook or book, ebook, you can get it for about $30. If you want the premium digital experience, it's going to be more, but it's going to be far less than a print book, far less, a third, something like that. So in many ways, the door has been solved.
Okay, let's go back to the 36 months.
Right.
We're sort of halfway there.
That's right.
Where are the levers over the next 18 months to hit your 36-month goal, August 2015? The levers that you pull internally, if you will, if you can talk about that. Where are the levers that the things that McGraw-Hill and others in the publishing industry can push to make that 36-month goal?
That's a fair question. As a leader in an organization, especially in an industry, in an organization that is both should be disrupted and you're also disrupting yourself, there are key levers that you pull. In my case, I have changed, candidly, about 75% of my entire company. Now that, to your point, is not a lever that a college university president can pull. Or pull as rapidly as I was able to do. So you have to have the right people who share the vision with you to go forward. Another lever you have to pull is you have to put a stake in the ground. And people love to have a stake in the ground. We have unbelievable engineers. We have some of the best engineers in the world, MIT level quality. So you put a stake in the ground, you say, this is where we're going. Then you have to ultimately say, we're not going to offer that any longer in a print format. Now that takes courage.
That takes huge courage.
It takes a tremendous amount of courage. You're going to see more and more of that from McGraw-Hill this year. Yeah. We're only offering certain materials digitally. That takes a lot of courage. So I do think that in order for...
That may be more of a courageous act in terms of dealing with faculty than students.
It is. Now, it's interesting. I have great brand managers in my company, formerly called editors, but they're really brand managers. And they would say, Brian, if we do X, Y, Z, how will the faculty feel about that? I say the faculty is important in that they are the commanders in chief of their classroom, no doubt. They decide, because they're experts in their field, what is going to be used in the classroom. The flip side, though, is the students are consumers. They make the decision. They make the ultimate decision on how that stuff is going to be consumed. Right. So it's an interesting change.
All right, so we're taping this. It goes up on the internet, and once it's up, it never comes back.
Right.
You're on record with the challenge, 36 months. Come back, and we'll have this conversation in another 18 months about where we are in the next round of distance to go.
I'd love it. And,
that'd be great.
I'd love it. Thanks for that.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Brian.
My pleasure.
Thank you.